Hello, everybody, and welcome to our third little webcast. Today, we're going to talk about maximizing your network performance, which is a very, very important subject these days, especially now that we're in month 4 of our coronavirus. Everyone's working from home. Still, now they're announcing what schools are going to be closed and become virtual only. It's going to become more and more important that your network as robust as possible. So I think to talk about that, I'm going to introduce Matt Parks, president of CSGT.
Thanks, Marty. I'm glad to be here. Excited to pick up on this third installment of our series IT in the time of COVID-19 and beyond. And in our previous two webinars, we talked about, first of all, collaboration tools, Teams versus Zoom. We also talked about network security basics. As you mentioned, in this session, we'll be talking about maximizing network performance. And this perhaps is going to be my favorite topic because first, it's very technical, which appeals to the engineer in me. And the second, it has a tremendous impact on organizational effectiveness and profitability, which appeals to the business person in me. Now, maybe to split hairs a little bit or to be a little bit technical, technically network performance is an exercise in optimization, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to balance performance and security. And it can be, at times can be time consuming and require a fair amount of effort, but I do think it's worth the investment. It's worth the investment because of 3 main benefits. First is employee productivity. Very simply stated, employees will spend more time on task, less time watching a progress bar. Second is an increase in employee satisfaction. And I think many might raise their eyebrows, especially the financially minded, saying, really, is there a tangible benefit here? And my favorite example when to point to the tangible impact is the U.S. military and the NSA. And when they decided to attack or go after ISIS, their plan explicitly included cyber attacks from U.S. Cyber Command on social media accounts and email accounts and other digital assets for ISIS. And the explicit intent was to reduce morale by increasing frustration through slowing downloads, through increasing the number of dropped connection, access denials, program glitches, and even password rejections. And frankly, it worked. It worked to great effect. And the last benefit, or the third benefit I would point to, is an increase in client satisfaction. And this will just increase the quality of your client's interaction with your organization, specifically through faster transactions and better response times. But to talk a little bit more specifically about some of the approaches one can use to improve network performance, I wanted to bring in one of our experts here, Dakota Strickland, who's going to talk through a couple of approaches. Dakota?
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, so there's a couple things that usually we recommend to an organization. First off, the main thing usually is upgrading your internet service. All that pretty much is a phone call to your internet service provider to see what speeds are available in your area. Once you do that, we usually do see a good amount of improvement there, but there are times when we need to kind of go a step further. One thing we usually also do is upgrading to fiber. What that does is it puts pretty much an internet dedicated line. So the way it works is when you're not using fiber, you're technically sharing speeds with your neighbors. So with a fiber line, it allows it to be a dedicated internet line that's only for your traffic and nothing else, which helps a lot with heavy load times in an area. If a lot of people are on the internet at the same time in your area, it's going to actually slow down your speed a little bit. Download is important, but also upload is just as important, especially when you're using VPN programs and everything like that. So usually you want to make sure that your upload speed is as high as it can be. Another thing we also recommend is kind of reducing areas in which there's bandwidth being used when it shouldn't be. If someone is downloading a bunch of movies, or someone's watching Netflix, or playing games for some reason on the Office network, that can slow down things a good amount. Um, Another thing usually we can kind of point to help with slow networks is if anyone's working remotely, it's usually better to remote in if you're using more graphics heavy programs. Usually this includes like AutoCAD or any other engineering or Photoshop or anything that uses a lot of like graphics processing power. It's usually better to remote desktop into their work machine from home over VPN instead of bringing their work machine home and then working off of that, because it has to download larger files, which isn't the best over VPN. Also, keep in mind you're going to be operating off their home network a lot of times. So, if some user has DSL somehow, or they're on AOL, you probably need to get them to upgrade their home service, and because that can also slow down their work pretty highly. Also, in addition to that, there's things we also recommend. One thing people can do is something called split tunneling. What this is, if you implement split tunneling, it makes it so that traffic that involves your work network passes through your work network, but also allows it so if a user goes on certain websites like Facebook or YouTube or anything, it routes it through their home network instead of going through the Office network. And there's some benefits to that, but there are also some downfalls. Benefits are, not everything has to pass through your work network. So if someone's kind of concerned about their privacy, it helps a little bit with that. But also the downfalls are some security concerns where, if your Office has like content filtering, that's not going to fall under the same rules if they're on their home network using split tunneling. Also, we like to revisit, the VPN setups. A lot of times they're set up kind of in haste, which can, leave some areas in which things can be tweaked to allow for faster speeds. So with that, you can look at your internet traffic to make sure that it's passing through properly, and that, any internal traffic, there's no errors or anything coming up on your firewall or on your network that can be slowing things down. Again, I've also mentioned this content filtering is something that's pretty handy when it comes to making sure there's not websites being used that shouldn't be. So, block Netflix, block YouTube, block any sites in which use very heavy downloads, because those can make a huge difference when it comes to, if you have 5 people on Netflix, it's going to slow things down. Also, with all this, equipment is also very important. We sometimes will recommend an SMA device in also addition to your firewall. What this is the device that only handles VPN traffic. So instead of having your sonic wall or firewall pretty much decipher all the VPN traffic, it makes it so there's a dedicated device on your network that handles VPN connections. This is usually for organizations that have more than 10 to 15 VPN users, because that can get pretty hefty on a firewall and use a lot of processing power. Also, you want to make sure your firmware is pretty much all up to date. A lot of times, stuff can be plug and play, so you hook up your router and your modem and you go, okay, well, that's it. That's not necessarily true. There are periodic updates that are released for those devices. And, that can involve upgrading it, can help you with security, can help you with speed. So there's a lot of benefits to making sure everything is upgraded on your network. And of course, CSG can help you with that.
Thanks, Dakota. That's a great summary, or great review. In short, it's looking at bandwidth, making sure that the bandwidth is configured properly, managing traffic, and then continuing to optimize the configurations of your equipment. And so as you can see, Marty, there's a lot of different areas you can focus on, a lot of different levers that you can pull. So, and we'd be glad to help or advise in any way that we could.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think one of the interesting things you talk about is uploading, or your upload speed, right? And I know that a lot of ISP providers really concentrate on your download speed because they're talking about downloading Netflix. And I often talk to people who have very slow upload speed. And in this world, I think it's becoming more and more important. The other interesting thing that I've never actually heard of was split tunneling. I think that that is something that most people won't know about. So where do you actually, how do you improve your split tunneling? Where do you do that? Is that in your computer?
So split tunneling is something that is done on the firewall side. It's something that you can put it on for certain users. You can put it on for the entire all of your VPN users. So it's not necessarily something you need to improve. It's kind of like an off-on switch. So it all depends on what network you're using and everything like that. So if yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I find that people are more focused in on their computer than they are in their router, which I think is what split tunneling is all about.
Yeah, exactly. And then, so that's the thing is you want to have your IT person go through your firewall and make sure that if you want to have split tunneling in, you have it implemented.
I think it's also important on the business side, right, to make sure that businesses, I know in my business, right, since this happened, not only did I upgrade my home service, I also upgraded my business service because of how important it is. Matt, is there anything else you want to add to kind of what, how do people know what to do, moving forward? Of course, they can watch the video a couple of times, but what other ways can they learn about it?
Well, when we go into a new situation, we'll usually begin kind of with an assessment. First of all, your users, your employees are usually a pretty good metric of what your your network performance is. I think we've been trained as a society to expect pretty responsive technology, so they're going to let you know. But we're going to go and look at just what is document what is the bandwidth that's coming in and out of the office. We're going to document the number of endpoints, and then you can even put in some monitoring tools and put in some I guess measurement devices to look at the utilization of bandwidth and of the firewall or some of those devices. So you're able to pretty accurately determine how often you are exceeding your current bandwidth, and then that'll lead to help kind of point to which strategies you're really going to want to employ. And Dakota did allude to it. The type of business that you have, the type of work that you're doing is going to drive this. If you're in the design and architectural world, you typically are dealing with very, very large files with graphic heavy processing needs. So, which is going to be very different from a law office or even a warehouse or a distribution facility. So, again, the specific lever that you're going to pull for an organization is going to depend on what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I believe that. Well, thank you, guys. Thank you, Dakota. Thank you, Matt. I think that as you ask questions, you could ask some questions on Facebook. This is posted on Facebook. And we'll get back to you and answer some questions. And please stay safe out there. And I say wear a mask. So there you go. All right, everybody. Thank you.